Audi's Q5 Sportback offers strong competition to more established, trendy mid-sized, premium-badged coupe-style SUVs like BMW's X4 and the Mercedes GLC Coupe. As with those cars, there aren't too many practical compromises in creation of this model's more stylish look, and clever OLED rear lighting tech offers an extra showroom incentive.
It's no longer good enough for a premium brand to offer a single, classy, mid-sized SUV. The aspiring middle management customers and retired people who form the largest market here expect the option of a sportier, more rakish offering with this kind of car, and here Audi provides it with this model, the Q5 Sportback. Audi's been rather late to this particular party. The model that pioneered this segment, the BMW X4, was introduced as long ago as 2014. Mercedes joined in with the GLC Coupe in 2016, and the Range Rover Velar arrived in 2017. Not until 2020 did this Q5 Sportback appear in the showrooms, its arrival coinciding with the launch of a far-reaching facelift of the ordinary second-generation Type 80A Q5 SUV that had originally been introduced in 2017. The Q5 has long been one of Audi's top 3 best-selling models, and there's little doubt that this Sportback version will broaden its appeal, just as in the segment below the Q3 Sportback did when it joined the Q3 range in 2019. Audi is expecting something similar here, anticipating that this Q5 Sportback will take 35 to 40% of all Q5 sales going forward. Like its standard counterpart, it's built at Audi's San Jose Chiapa plant in Mexico. And of course it features all the improvements lately visited upon facelifted versions of the ordinary Q5. That means a new twin-dosing 2-litre TDI diesel engine option, the brand's latest mild hybrid tech, a completely redesigned advanced cabin infotainment system, and, for those that want it, Audi's TFSI-E plug-in hybrid technology is really getting into gear. Top variants also gain an achingly trendy OLED rear lighting system, and there's a high-performance SQ5 variant at the top of the range. Plenty to talk about then in this, the industry's most comprehensive film, the Car and Driving Road Test. If you're looking for a premium badged mid-sized SUV, you don't choose the coupe SUV variant of it to get a more sporting quality of drive. Or if you do, you're likely to be disappointed. Adding what amounts to a backwards baseball cap look to a sensible crossover class car of this kind, usually accompanied by a bit of extra weight, obviously isn't going to make any difference to the way the thing drives, whatever the glossy advertising might suggest. So it is with this Audi Q5 Sportback, the end confection here further softened by the standard SUV model's remit as a car primarily designed for a lowering rather than a raising of the heartbeat. We can't imagine that many potential customers for this car will be much bothered by this. People will continue to choose the Q5 even in this form, primarily for its hushed refinement, its impressive ride quality and its exemplary build quality. Add in seamless shifts from the S-tronic auto gearbox and the potential to add the choicest elements of Audi's latest autonomous drive tech, and there's much to compensate for the fact that this car remains ultimately pretty disinterested in offering much driver feedback when the road gets twisty. Which in some ways is curious, given that this Audi shares many of its mechanicals with a Porsche Macan. Add in the steering rack from that car to replace the rather lifeless one a Q5 must have, and this Ingolstadt model would be transformed. Actually, the current updated Q5 range doesn't share quite as many mechanicals with the Macan, because since the mid-term facelift of this Type 80A series Mark II design back in 2020, the brand has taken the opportunity to add electrification in various doses to all the available engines. This comes mostly in the form of 12-volt mild hybrid tech, which features with both of the 2-litre 4-cylinder engines that nearly all Q5 customers choose. We're trying one of them here, the 265 PS petrol unit that features in the 45 TFSI model, which is actually quite rapid, 62 miles an hour, occupying just 6.1 seconds on the way to 149 miles an hour. For the time being though, this power plant's still outsold by its black pump fueled counterpart, the 204 PS diesel unit that features in the 40 TDI model, which is slightly less rapid on paper, 62 miles an hour in 7.6 seconds and 137 miles an hour top speed, but faster feeling in practice thanks to a 400 Newton meter torque figure that's 30 Newton meters greater than the petrol model. Like all four-cylinder Q5s, both variants use a 7-speed S-tronic paddle shift auto gearbox, and both 2-litre models offer the same 2.4-tonne braked towing capacity. Either way, you get mild hybrid engine embellishment that works the same way these systems usually do. So there's a starter generator that charges a little lithium-ion battery when slowing down, which produces energy able to power auxiliaries like the climate control and the electric power steering. Plus, with the efficiency Audi Drive Select driving mode selected, the other settings are comfort, dynamic and off-road, auto and individual, the engine will seamlessly cut out and coast at speeds of up to 99 miles an hour. In addition, the MHEV tech allows the stop and start system to cut in much earlier, from 13 miles an hour, so that the car eases silently up to junctions and traffic lights, then restarts its engine more seamlessly when the time comes to move away. As we'll explain in more detail in our cost of ownership section, you shouldn't get your hopes up too high when it comes to the running cost difference that all this technology is likely to make. If you want a powertrain in your Q5 Sportback that will make a significant efficiency difference, you'll need to look instead at the two TFSI-E plug-in powertrains available with this car. There are two, the 50 TFSI-E with 299 PS and the 55 TFSI-E with 367 PS. Both pair the 1984cc petrol power plant of this 45 TFSI model with a 105 kilowatt electric motor powered by a 14.4 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery, which when fully replenished can deliver up to 38 miles of all-electric driving range. That's provided you make proactive use of the specific electrified drive modes made available for TFSI-E models. Hybrid is the default one, but you've also got EV for battery power only and battery hold, which enables you to save battery power for later in your trip. For those occasions when frugality is abandoned and you simply need performance, the 50 TFSI-E model makes 62 miles an hour in 6.1 seconds, a figure the more potent 55 TFSI-E competition variant improves to 5.3 seconds. Both derivatives top out at 148 miles an hour. What about four-wheel drive across this car's model range? Well, it's standard, of course. All-wheel traction tends to be merely a nice-to-have feature amongst smaller mid-sized coupe SUVs, but in the premium upper mid-size sector this Q5 Sportback sits in, it's an expected feature, delivered in the case of all the TDI, TFSI and TFSI-E variants mentioned so far by the latest version of Audi's Quattro Ultra four-wheel drive setup. Like most other all-wheel drive systems used in this class, this one operates in a seamless fashion, introducing drive to the rear wheels when grip levels demand it, or when you switch into the dynamic driving mode. The difference with Ultra Quattro technology, though, is that it can also be predictive. Sensors around the car allow the system to read your driving style. So, for example, if you're throwing this Audi around in that sporty Drive Select dynamic setting, the software will engage four-wheel drive sooner and for longer. In contrast, if you're cruising along with Drive Select in comfort, the Quattro package is less likely to unnecessarily come into play than it would with a less intelligent on-demand system. That covers the four-cylinder Q5 Sportback range. There is another engine option available, though not in the conventional variants most will want. Audi limits its gutsy 3-litre V6 TDI diesel unit to the top and sportiest SQ5 model, which gets it in a 341 PS state of tune, complete not only with a mild hybrid system we mentioned earlier in uprated 48-volt form, but also an electric compressor which facilitates near instantaneous throttle response and virtually seamless access to 700 Newton meters of torque. To cope with that, an 8-speed Tiptronic ZF torque converter auto gearbox is fitted, and if you're quick with the steering wheel paddle shifters, you'll be able to work with it to dispatch the rest to 62 mph sprint in just 5.1 seconds, en route to a top speed that must be artificially limited to 155 mph. Power, of course, is nothing without control, and in the top Vorsprung trimmed version of the SQ5 you get an extra element of that, courtesy of Audi's Sport differential, which transfers torque between the rear wheels for extra cornering traction. Every SQ5 gets a heavier duty Quattro four-wheel drive system, Audi's traditional Torsen activated setup, plus a 30mm lowered ride height. There's also adaptive damping, which on a Vorsprung model is replaced by an adaptive air suspension package that also comes fitted to Vorsprung trimmed Q5 Sportbacks with lesser engines, but can't be optioned in as an extra with more affordable trim levels. Which is a pity, because it'd be a nice feature to have on this car. Adaptive air suspension uses gas-filled cushions in place of steel coils and works through a revised selection of drive select modes that see the off-road option become lift off-road and an extra all-road mode added. This air-suspended setup increases braked towing capacity and will lower the body by 15mm when you select dynamic or travel at speeds of over 74 mph. And it's even more useful on slippery or snowy tracks, raising the body by 25mm in all-road mode and by as much as 45mm if you select the lift off-road setting. In the unlikely event that you are regularly going to use your Q5 Sportback for off-piste use, we think you'd really need this air suspension package, because without it, the car's capability is as limited as it would be with most other models in this segment. For the record, on standard models there's a ride height of 208mm, an approach angle of 25 degrees, a departure angle of 27 degrees and a ramp angle of 17 degrees. In a model that's been fitted with either adaptive or air suspension, you'll be able to monitor these gradient levels via a tilt angle indicator on the centre dash screen, which is something that 99.9% of ordinary Q5 Sportback owners will never want to do. For them, of course, what will be important is this car's capability on the highway, not in the Highlands. And it's at a cruise where the superb refinement we mentioned earlier really comes into its own. At speed, noise suppression is so good that it's virtually impossible to know whether a petrol or diesel engine beats beneath the bonnet. If long dual carriageway distances punctuated by urban commutes are going to be a regular diet of Q5 ownership, you'd ideally want the Vorsprung model, or at least specify the optional Tour Pack that's available with the mid-range S-Line trim level we're trying here. In either case, you'll get an adaptive cruise control with stop and go and traffic jam assist package that can manage most highway driving duties for you with minimal driver input. Plus, when you reach the urban sprawl, an incorporated traffic jam assist feature will also free you up in slow to medium speed queues, allowing the car to automatically brake, accelerate and steer for you at speeds of up to 37 mph. Plus, a predictive efficiency assistant uses sensors and GPS data to prepare the car for corners, roundabouts and junctions before you reach them. It'd all be perfect for Surbiton, if not the Serengeti. And it's all very Audi, just as a Q5 should be. According to Audi, form often carries as much weight as function for its customers. Well, the form here is certainly more expressive. The Q5 in this Sportback form, aiming to offer what the brand hopes is a best of both worlds experience. Coupe style and SUV practicality, all in one classy package. This coupe SUV model is certainly sleeker than the standard version. The drag factor drops to 0.30 CD, but it's also 20 kilograms heavier, partly because it's 7mm longer. The obvious change, of course, is the earlier downward slope of the rear roofline, emphasised by these silver-finished roof rails. More silver trimming along these lower sills add a further touch of SUV-ness. This Sportback version's been redesigned from the B-pillar backwards, but much remains from the ordinary variant, including this prominent upper crease line, which begins as a bonnet seam at the corners of the headlights before sweeping back towards the rear below mirrors, mounted on the door shoulders as they would be on a sports car. Lower down, various surfaces create an interplay of light and shadow to give the flanks some shape, and they separate flared wheel arches housing rims that vary in size from 18 to 21 inches. And we've got 20-inch 5-segment spoke design diamond cut rims here. In theory, there aren't really any changes at the front to distinguish this Sportback variant, but Audi couldn't resist doing a little tinkering, and the result on this S-Line spec model, the trim level most will choose, is that these corner intakes get a wider silver frame. Otherwise, the look is just as on the ordinary SUV version of Audi's updated Mark II Q5 design, which means that this trademark single-frame grille gets this black honeycomb mesh finish on pricier variants and remains the starting point for crisp bonnet contours that, as before, flow up to the windscreen and the A-pillars. The bonnet wraps over the outer edges of the wings, as do the low-profile, wedge-shaped headlights with their intricate Audi-branded lenses. Avoid entry-level trim and you'll get them with the company's intelligent matrix beam technology. This lower silver skid plate is a finishing touch. That sloping rear window means, of course, the need for a redesign here at the rear. The swept-back roofline blends smoothly into this tailgate spoiler with its wind-cheating vertical black surrounds, while further down there's a bespoke diffuser section, which on this S-Line variant sees this unusual arching silver trimming strip flowing above the twin exhausts. The taillights, separated by this central chrome strip, will usually be of the normal LED kind, but at the top of the range, Audi also offers the high-tech OLED lighting system we first saw on the larger Q8. Those dual light lamps use organic light-emitting diodes in fittings split into 3 tiles of 6 segments each, which enables the creation of 3 different light signatures from which customers can choose, these illuminating as you approach or leave the car. In a neat touch, proximity sensors also allow them to automatically illuminate if another road user is detected within a 2-metre radius of a stationary Q5. And beyond that, well, as usual, of course, what's more important is what you can't see. The stiff, sophisticated MLB Evo platform that continues to underpin all Volkswagen Group upper mid-size models, which this Q5 shares with its close cousin, the Porsche Macan. Time for a look inside. Let's take a seat up front. Getting into the front seat is predictably easy thanks to the raised ride height you get in this kind of SUV, and the door thunks shut with a vault-like quality, leaving you in a cabin which, as always in a Q5, is a masterclass in interior quality and ergonomics. Despite recent advances made by direct rivals, in many ways this remains the defining interior in its segment, with the cool, classy feel that's distinctive to this Ingolstadt brand. As part of the changes made to the facelifted version of this second-generation Q5, Audi introduced this smarter 10.1-inch Revo centre dash infotainment screen, which is larger than the monitor previously used in this Mark II Q5 design, but curiously still smaller than the display you'll find in the smaller A3 Sportback hatch. This screen sits above these centre vents, and they in turn are positioned above this 3D trim inlay panel, silver here with Quattro badge embellishment, but also offered in different finishes according to your choice of model and spec, and enhanceable with classy ambient lighting. As ever with an Audi, small details add to the feeling of quality, like the gear lever that also acts as a handrest for the infotainment system controller, the touch switches for the 3-zone climate control, and the way that temperature displays have been incorporated into the ventilation system's rotary dials. As before, the brand wants the interior experience of this Q5 to replicate that of an SUV from the next class up, as in many ways it does, every control function working with Swiss watch-style precision. The introduction of this more sophisticated central screen reflects this Q5's adoption of Audi's latest MIB3 media platform, or parts of it anyway. Because this model's Type 80A Q5 design dates back to 2016, its dashboard doesn't incorporate the kind of useful lower 8.6-inch screen that the MIB3 setup delivers in Audi's larger models. But, as with those cars, the upper screen relies almost entirely on acoustic touch functionality and voice control. So there's no longer any place for the MMI rotary controller by the gear stick that on earlier Q5s used to make it easier to access particular infotainment screen functions without taking your eyes away from the road. We can't help thinking this to be a backward step. Still, the menu structure is logical, the graphics are smart, and as you'd want, standard fit items include navigation and the usual Audi smartphone interface, compatible with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto handset mirroring systems. You'd have to pay extra for that on a rival Mercedes GLC Coupe in this segment. As with most modern monitors of this kind, the most important radio, media, telephone and nav functions are dealt with by tile apps you can move around with the kind of drag and drop functionality you'll be used to from your smartphone, or by what Audi calls natural language voice control, which works fine but is still nothing like as intuitive as the competing Hey BMW or Hey Mercedes systems. Still, Audi Connect media connectivity makes up for a lot, even if you have to pay a subscription to get it after 3 months of use, which, to be fair, is a caveat that also applies to advanced media features in some rival models. Amongst other things, the Connect package delivers online media streaming, a Google Points of Interest search function, a comprehensive Audi online traffic information system, plus news and weather feeds via a Wi-Fi hotspot supporting the super-fast LTE Advanced mobile data network. The other screen you'll be interfacing with in this car is the one you view through the magnesium-framed 3-spoke wheel. This 12.3-inch configurable virtual cockpit display is standard across the lineup, and here, as usual, works with 2 selectable layouts activated by this steering wheel view button. There's a classical view that prioritises a couple of prominent dials separated by an information screen, and an infotainment mode which shrinks the pair of gauges to allow more central space for various data readouts, a trip computer, media or phone settings, or a full-width navigation setup. The only slight issue we have with the virtual cockpit package is that you can't use the navigational part of it if you're using outside sat-nav systems through your phone, such as Waze. Otherwise, though, this setup still represents a class benchmark for digital instrument clusters of this kind. You're perfectly positioned to view all of this information by supportive chairs that get standard leather trim, are anatomically shaped and feature embellishments that you'd have to pay extra for on rivals, things like heating and lumbar support, which certainly adds to the very upmarket ambience served up here. As we've already suggested, wherever you look, touch or feel, there are treats. Buttons click nicely, column stalks feel good, and the low-rent plastics you'd find further down in most premium rivals are noticeable by their absence. Frontward visibility is fine, but your over-the-shoulder view is slightly compromised by the coupe-style sloping roofline, as is the case with most other cars in this segment. So it's fortunate that all-round parking sensors and a reversing camera are standard fit. On to storage space, which for the most part has been thoughtfully addressed. So you get a pen clip and little coin slots in the big glove box. The door bins are of a decent size and you get both USB-A and USB-C ports. The USB-A port is to be found alongside a 12-volt socket to the left of this nicely backlit cubby at the base of the centre stack. The USB-C point, meanwhile, is inside this stowage area between the seats, an area which can be topped by this ratcheting lid that serves as an armrest if you pay extra for it. Rather meanly, you also have to pay extra for a lock on the glove box, and for this kind of money, we'd have expected a wireless charging mat to be standard too. When specified, it's to be found in this sliding tray that sits below the gear stick and eases back to reveal a couple of cup holders. Audi's forgotten to include an overhead compartment for your sunglasses, but you do get a ticket clip in the driver's sun visor and a couple of cubbies around the gear stick. This lidded coin compartment just ahead of it, and this narrow pen tray to the left. Now it's time to turn our attention to the rear. Now, you'd expect the swept back roofline to make access a little awkward here, but you're unlikely to notice any real problems with access unless you're particularly tall. Which is also true once you get inside. There might be a few issues with headroom if you've gone for the ritziest Vorsprung version with its panoramic glass roof, but otherwise, unless you're over 6 foot tall, you'll be fine for ceiling space. Unless you're sitting in the middle, the moulding for these individual overhead reading lights robs you of a few crucial inches of headspace. But you're not likely to want to sit in the middle anyway, unless you really had to. The height of this central transmission tunnel and the way the base of the bench is moulded sees to that. Practicalities include ISOFIX child seat fastenings on the two outer pews, the provision of digital ventilation controls and a 12-volt socket, plus you get door pockets each large enough for a reasonably sized bottle, and coat hooks on the grab handles and on the B-pillars. Unfortunately, you have to pay extra for an optional storage pack to get these seat back mat pockets and the pop-up cup holders you'll find in this centre armrest. As with the standard SUV version of this model, the experience you can expect back here depends quite a lot on whether you've got a version of this car fitted with this sliding rear bench seat plus back seat. This lets you slide the base back and forth by 12 centimetres to increase either legroom or luggage space, and also alter the backrest angle through 3 stages for greater long-distance comfort. It's the sort of thing you get as standard on a much cheaper Volkswagen Tiguan, but unless you choose the plug-in hybrid TFSI-E version of this Q5 or a really ritzy level of spec, you'll have to pay £350 more for it, and you can't have it at all with a conventional engine and base sport trim. Our advice is to try and tick the rear bench seat plus box if you can, because it'll make a significant difference to the way you'll be able to interact with this Audi. And it's a significant selling point over this model's BMW X4 and Mercedes GLC Coupe segment arch rivals. Let's take a look at the boot, accessed via a standard powered tailgate, the rising height of which can be tailored to suit your garage ceiling. Plus, you can operate it with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper if you've opted for the extra cost advanced key package. A 510 litre space is on offer with this body style, 40 litres less than you'd get with the ordinary SUV body style. That's a little less than you get with a BMW X4, which offers 525 litres, but a little more than is offered by a Mercedes GLC Coupe, which offers 491 litres. Bear in mind, though, that your Q5 Sportback will be able to take only 415 litres of capacity if it's of the TFSI-E plug-in hybrid kind, due to the battery pack that sits beneath the boot floor. Across the range, the 1300mm luggage bay width means there's plenty of room for wider items that you might want to place lengthwise, like golf bags, for instance. On all Q5s, if you're carrying heavier items, you'll be glad of the relatively low loading sill, though it's topped by this impractical silver panel that'll easily scratch. If you stretch to the top Vorsprung trim level with its adaptive air suspension, there'll be a button in this trunk compartment that will allow you to drop the height of the loading sill by up to 55 millimetres. As for practical little touches fitted across the range, well, there are netted corner areas to the left and the right, plus bag hooks and LED strip lamps on both sides, plus another LED light on the inside of the tailgate to illuminate the cargo area when you're loading things in at night. There'll be more stowage space beneath the floor too, though only if you've been unwise enough to avoid paying extra for the space saver spare wheel that we have fitted here. If you've gone for that optional storage pack we mentioned, you get this left-hand tensioning sidewall strap and a detachable net you can stretch across the floor, attached to the usual tie-down point so as to stop small items from moving around. If you've got a Q5 fitted with the rear bench seat plus package we mentioned earlier, you'll have the advantage of being able to push the sliding rear bench right forward if necessary, so increasing cargo capacity to as much as 570 litres. And even if you can't do that, you can at least make the rear seat backs a little more upright thanks to the reclining mechanism. It could make all the difference when it comes to getting suitcases in on your next airport run. If you need more cargo flexibility, then the first option is to make use of the way that this rear bench splits 40-20-40, which means that longer items like skis can be pushed through into the cabin without disturbing two rear-seated occupants. Completely flattening the rear bench frees up 1,480 litres of space in this Sportback version of this car. That's 40 litres less than the standard SUV model. For a Q5 Sportback TFSI-E, the seats folded total is 1,355 litres. Either way, it should be sufficient for the needs of most owners. If you're looking to buy an upper mid-sized premium coupe SUV like this Q5 Sportback and expecting a sticker price of under £45,000 for it, you're being a touch unrealistic these days. From launch and at the time of this test in autumn 2021, prices for this model started off at just under £46,000. And there's the usual Audi trim choice of base sport, mid-range S-line, which is what we have here, and top Vorsprung. This has a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, which is what almost all Q5 sold in our market get, paired in every case with a 7-speed S-tronic dual-clutch auto gearbox. This happens to be the 265 PS petrol version, badged 45 TFSI, which costs only a fraction more than the alternative 204 PS diesel, badged 40 TDI. Q5 Sportback folk looking at either engine usually often choose to find the £2,550 premium to upgrade from base sport spec to this mid-range S-line trim. You probably won't want to stretch from S-line to top Vorsprung spec because that requires over £15,000 more, by which time you'll be paying nearly £64,000. The other engine option you might want to consider here is Audi's TFSI-E plug-in hybrid power plant, a version of the 2-litre TFSI petrol unit mated to a 105 kilowatt electric motor powered by a 14.1 kilowatt-hour battery, which can deliver an electrified range of up to 38 miles. This comes in two forms, with the variant most will want being the 50 TFSI-E model, which offers 299 PS, can be had with the major trim levels, and was priced from around £53,500 at the time of this test. If you can afford to stretch to near the £60,000 mark, there's also a faster 55 TFSI-E derivative, which puts out 367 PS and only comes in the highest competition or competition Vorsprung standards of trim. At the top of the Q5 range, Audi offers a fast SQ5 version of this model, which only comes with a 341 PS version of the brand's 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel. At the time of this test, the standard version was priced at around £59,000, but you'll need around £74,000 to get the top Vorsprung version. Right, let's take a look at the overall Q5 Sportback value proposition. Now, in terms of pricing perspective, before we get into rival brand comparisons, we probably first need to clarify this Q5's position in the Audi lineup. A Q5 Sportback costs around £8,000 more than a comparably engined version of the next model down in the brand's lineup, the Q3 Sportback. If you want to make an all-electric comparison, the brand's similarly sized Q4 Sportback e-tron in comparable 50 e-tron Quattro form will cost you around £6,000 more than a Q5 Sportback. With that said, you'll want to know how this Q5 Sportback's pricing stacks up against premium branded upper mid-sized coupe SUVs from rival manufacturers. So let's see, using the most popular variant of this car, the 40 TDI diesel, as a pricing benchmark. The obvious rivals are the Mercedes GLC Coupe, which costs around the same as this Audi, and the BMW X4, which costs around £3,000 more. The other rival you might consider, the Range Rover Velar, costs around the same as this Audi in base diesel form, but further up the Velar lineup, you'll find that pricier variants of that car tend to cost around £3,000 or so more than their Q5 Sportback equivalents. Similar money to what Audi's asking here would also get you a better specified Jaguar F-Pace, and you might also want to look at a Porsche Macan, which at the time of this test was priced from just under £50,000 upwards. The other mid-sized premium badged SUV contenders that might spring to mind are more accurately targeted by the more ordinary SUV version of this Q5. If, having done your homework and looked at a few alternatives, you conclude that it is this Audi that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous the Ingolstadt brand has been when it comes to the standard spec. Well, let's see. Even entry-level sport spec gives you plenty. To be specific, you get 18-inch 5 twin-spoke alloy wheels, full LED headlights, aluminium roof rails, keyless entry, an alarm, auto headlamps and wipers, a powered tailgate, and Audi Parking System Plus, which gives you front and rear parking sensors. Inside, there's leather upholstery, climate control, heated front seats, an auto-dimming rear view mirror, cruise control, an LED interior lighting pack, a reversing camera, and a useful removable net partition for the cargo area. Plus, there's a drive select system that allows you to tweak throttle, steering, and gear shift timings to suit the way you want to drive. Perhaps the most important piece of standard interior equipment fitted across the Q5 Sportback range, though, is this car's high-end infotainment package. Now, Audi calls it MMI, Navigation Plus with MMI Touch. To operate it all, this car draws on the MIB3 infotainment platform we first saw in the 4th generation A8 Saloon, or borrows from part of it anyway, specifically the high-mounted centre dash 10.1-inch screen, with its sophisticated graphics, acoustic feedback, and natural language "Hey Audi" voice control. This setup's intelligent 3D navigation system is able to take into account traffic congestion and previously driven routes, brief you on filling stations and parking places on your route, and include 3D graphic models of many European cities. The MMI package also includes voice recognition, which is able to connect with the cloud-based Amazon voice service Alexa. And there's an 8-speaker DAB sound system and the usual wireless smartphone interface, which hooks you up with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone mirroring connectivity system. As an included part of the MMI system, you'll get 3 months free use of the Audi Connect media connectivity package. You'll pay a subscription for these services if you want to continue with them after that point, and you might well want to. Audi Connect works via an embedded SIM card that's permanently installed in the car and operates on a data flat rate, so you won't be stung with high roaming charges if you do a bit of intercontinental motoring. The setup comes with an LTE data transmission module that establishes high-speed 4G Internet 3 access and creates in your Q5 a Wi-Fi hotspot supporting the super-fast LTE Advanced Mobile Data Network. It also allows you to navigate with images from Google Earth, access a Google Points of Interest search function with voice control, and use a web radio setup with stations from around the world. Through the Connect system, you can access special in-car versions of your Facebook and Twitter pages, and it's possible to read, write and send text messages and emails. The included online media streaming package gives access to millions of music tracks, and there's also a clever Audi online traffic information system that uses live traffic information to reroute you around jams. What else? Well, you can take Audi Connect connectivity with you even when you're not with your Q5 Sportback thanks to an improved My Audi app. This transmits points of interest to the navigation system, streams music and can transfer your calendar to the MMI infotainment screen. The app also allows you to seamlessly plan a route across multiple devices. So, if you're going to a restaurant in an unfamiliar city, for example, and have to park a few streets away from the venue, navigation will continue with you on your smartphone as you complete the journey on foot. And finally, as usual with vehicle apps of this sort, you can use it to get a vehicle status report and to lock or unlock the doors from wherever you are. All of this comes as standard with base sport trim, but most Q5 Sportback customers opt to find the extra to move to the mid-range S-Line level of trim that we have here. That's primarily because it delivers a significantly more purposeful look. That comes courtesy of larger 19-inch 5 twin-spoke star alloy wheels, intelligent matrix LED headlights with washers, rear privacy glass and a sports styling pack that includes S-Line themed bumpers and side skirts, a bespoke rear diffuser and a body-coloured front spoiler lip, plus a honeycomb structured front grille. At this level, conventionally engined Q5 Sportbacks get a more overt S-Line rear roof spoiler too. S-Line trim also gets you dynamic scrolling front and rear indicators and lowered sports suspension. The cabin of an S-Line spec Q5 Sportback, meanwhile, is lifted by smarter leather and Alcantara upholstery, a black cloth headliner, stainless steel pedals, illuminated door sill plates, a gear knob in black perforated leather, contrast stitching around the cabin and an S-Line branded 3-spoke sports steering wheel with paddle shifters. If you want more and don't mind paying for it, then top-spec Vorsprung trim beckons. Perhaps the two key additional features here are adaptive air suspension and the full portfolio of Audi's array of camera safety kits. We'll cover that off for you in a few moments, but there's also a whole stack of aesthetic embellishment and luxury stuff too. The looks of a Vorsprung spec Q5 Sportback are enhanced by bigger 21-inch 5 V-spoke Audi Sport wheels, the distinctive illuminating signature of the brand's clever OLED rear lights, and a gloss black finish for the exterior Audi and Q5 badging. Conventionally engined models get side running boards too. Inside with Vorsprung spec, you get an upgrade to softer, fine nappa leather upholstery with diamond stitching. There's power for the front chairs and the steering column. You get the rear bench seat plus sliding rear bench, and you're treated to a 19-speaker Bang & Olufsen 3D sound system, putting out 755 watts. Other Vorsprung spec features include an extended interior upholstery pack with leatherette covering for a lower centre console, highlighted like the doors by a multicoloured ambient lighting system. There's also a heated steering wheel, piano black inlays, Vorsprung puddle lights, a front seat massaging function, heated rear seats, a panoramic sunroof, the Audi phone box wireless phone charger, and the advanced key system that allows you to open the powered tailgate with a wave of your foot below the bumper. Drive features include a head-up display, a 360-degree camera system, a park assist system to steer you into spaces, and adaptive cruise control. What about if you're looking at the flagship sporting Q5 Sportback variant? Well, this model gets all the features you'd receive with S-Line spec, plus S-Sport adaptive suspension with damper control, which in this case allows Audi to add an extra off-road setting to the Drive Select driving mode system. As you'd want in choosing this more dynamic derivative, there's a subtly specific look with S-model aluminium trimmed door mirrors, an aluminium trimmed dual branch tailpipe design, and a dynamic S-specific body kit. Inside, Q5 buyers are treated to a bespoke S-branded cabin featuring extra leatherette interior trim, a special gear lever, an S-branded 3-spoke steering wheel, S-specific instrument dials, and the brand's famous diamond-stitched Napa leather-trimmed S-Sport seats. Plus, in its standard form, the Q5 gets the rear bench plus sliding rear bench, Audi beam puddle lights, massaging front seats, the extended interior upholstery pack, and the Audi phone box wireless phone charging mat. If you want more, your Q5 Sportback can also be ordered in top Vorsprung form with all the extra Vorsprung spec features we've just talked you through. On to the options you can get across the Q5 Sportback range. We're disappointed to find that it's not possible to order the rear bench plus sliding rear seat on base sport spec 40 TDI and 45 TFSI model Q5 Sportbacks, but you can have it as a £350 option on 40 TDI and 45 TFSI S-Line spec models. We've actually got it fitted here. That sliding rear seat is standard on the plug-in TFSI E variants and also features on Q5s and all variants with Vorsprung trim. Across the range with the mainstream Sport and S-Line derivatives, you can't add in adaptive air suspension or adaptive damping, but with those two trim levels you can add in quite a lot of other niceties that otherwise you'd have to stretch up to that pricey Vorsprung spec level for. A number of these are included in the optional comfort and sound pack that your Audi Centre will want you to consider finding an extra £1,400 for. This gives you the 19-speaker, 755-watt Bang & Olufsen 3D sound system, the extended LED interior multicoloured lighting pack, the 360-degree camera system, and the advanced key package with its gesture-controlled rear tailgate. Other Vorsprung style features that you might want to add into a Sport or S-Line spec model include a panoramic roof, the Audi phone box wireless charging mat, and a pack that gives you various interior elements in artificial leather. There's also an optional parking assistance pack, which includes a 360-degree reversing camera and Audi's Park Assist Plus package to steer you into spaces. You can choose from a range of bespoke puddle lights too. And bear in mind also that unless you want your Q5 Sportback painted in either of the only two solid colours that Audi offers, brilliant black and ibis white, you're going to need to be paying the brand £675 more for one of the available metallic shades. We've got metallic Navara blue here. There's a 19-inch wheel upgrade option too, and on an Q5 Sportback you can also add carbon mirror trims. What about a few extra practical touches? Well, you're going to need the optional Space Saver spare wheel unless you want to be stuck by the road fiddling with a tyre repair kit the next time you have a puncture. And we'd also want to tick the box for the pack that gives you a larger 70-litre fuel tank and, on a TDI model, a bigger 24-litre AdBlue tank. Another important box to tick is that for the storage pack that gives you netting for the front seat backs, a lockable glove box, a cup holder in the rear centre armrest, plus for the boot, tensioning straps and a luggage net. Talking of the boot, there's lots you can add there. For the luggage compartment, you can specify a protective shell, a foldable box or a durable tray. Plus, if you have pets, you might also want to add a longitudinal or transversely mounted partition net. You can add a tow bar, of course, which will also allow you to add bike carriers capable of taking either 2 or 3 bikes. Bicycles can also be carried using a bespoke rack on the roof. And roof racks are also available for roof boxes, skis, snowboards and kayaks. Other practical options available include child seats, all-weather floor mats, mud flaps, an air freshener gecko, a dash cam drive recorder and even an espresso maker. Enough with optional features, let's move on to look at safety. Now, there's no driver's knee bag, but otherwise most of the main features you'd expect are present and correct, with the standard fit highlight on all models being a collision avoidance system that Audi calls Pre-Sense City. This is one of those setups that constantly scans the road ahead in search of potential vehicle and pedestrian accident hazards, in this case at a speed range of up to 52 miles an hour. If it detects one, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the system will automatically brake the car and should be able to avoid a collision entirely at speeds of under 24 miles an hour. If you're going faster than that, the Pre-Sense City system will dramatically reduce your speed to significantly soften the impending impact. If you do hit something and panic, a standard multi-collision brake assist system will automatically take over braking duties to avoid the possibility of skidding and further collisions. Specify a tow bar and you'll also benefit from a trailer assist system that'll restrict towing sway. This car is fundamentally safe too, with key parts of the body structure fashioned from crash-safe, hot-formed, high-strength steel. Now, as you'd expect, all variants feature twin front, side and curtain airbags. These ones able to automatically adjust their deployment to suit both passenger seating positions and the type of front collision. Other basic standard safety features include ISOFIX child seat fastenings, anti-whiplash head restraints, a tyre pressure loss indicator, a pop-up bonnet to minimise pedestrian injuries in an impact, and a complete roster of electronic acronyms, including the usual electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control. There's also a rest recommendation feature that at speeds of over 18 miles an hour monitors your driving for drowsiness, alerting you if necessary to stop for a restorative coffee. And an Audi Connect safety and service feature that will automatically alert the emergency services with your exact GPS location should you be in an accident that has activated the airbags. It's always possible to go further though, and should you want extra peace of mind on Sport and S-Line spec models, your Audi Centre salesperson will point you towards the optional City Assist Pack that for £500 more gives you 4 extra camera safety features. There's Audi Side Assist, basically a blind spot assistance system that warns you if you're about to dangerously pull out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. Secondly, there's Cross Traffic Assist Rear, a feature which warns you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of a space. Thirdly, there's Audi Pre-Sense Basic, which braces the car for a collision, tightening seat belts, closing all windows, including the sunroof, and activating the hazard lights. When a collision is unavoidable, the Pre-Sense Basic system assists the driver with controlled brake applications, often overriding the intense effort of the driver and keeping the car from skidding. The final element in the City Assist Pack is Audi Pre-Sense Rear, a system which also braces the car for a collision, but this time with specific attention on impending collisions from the back, detected via sensors in the rear bumper. If you can avoid base sport trim and stretch to this mid-level S-Line spec, you'll also be offered the option of Audi's Tour Pack for an extra £1,250, which includes a range of even more advanced camera features. With this, your Q5 Sportback will be embellished with a Level 2 style autonomous driving feature, adaptive cruise control with stop and go and traffic jam assist. This system uses automatic distance regulation to seamlessly keep your Q5 a set distance behind the car in front on the highway, warning you if you're too close to another vehicle and able to automatically stop you, then start you off again if you come across a tailback. The traffic jam assist part also frees you up in slow to medium speed queues, allowing the car to automatically brake, accelerate and steer for you at speeds of up to 37 miles an hour. A clever predictive efficiency assistant system works with this setup, regulating your Audi's speed for maximum efficiency and also offering driving tips. It could create full savings of up to 10%. The Tour Pack also includes turn assist, which automatically applies the brakes to prevent an accident if you're turning out of a junction and haven't seen an oncoming car or bike. If only every car had that feature. Further Tour Pack features include Audi's Pre-Sense front system, designed to help avoid or to mitigate accidents that might see you heading into the rear of the vehicle in front. With this, a long-range radar positioned at the front of the car can detect vehicles up to 80 metres ahead, which your Audi is likely to hit unless action is taken. The information from the front radar is combined with data from a windscreen-mounted camera to calculate the likelihood of an impact, and the driver will be warned then, if necessary, the brakes automatically applied. There's also a collision avoidance assistant, which provides extra steering torque to help you steer around an obstacle in an emergency situation. A more familiar Tour Pack inclusion is traffic sign recognition that can picture road signs and display them on the dash. And there's active lane assist there to gently steer you back into your lane if you inadvertently drift out of it. It's all very reassuring. That's covered the safety options on offer, and as mentioned earlier though, the top Vorsprung level of trim comes with a huge array of camera safety and driving tech as standard, some of which can't be had anywhere else in the range. As you'd expect for the money, a Q5 Sportback Vorsprung gets all the features of the City Assist and Tour Packs we've just described. There's also exit warning feature, which will alert occupants if they're about to open a door in the face of oncoming traffic. Cross traffic assist rear, which will alert you to oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of a space. And Audi side assist, basically a blind spot monitor there to stop you from dangerously pulling out in front of another vehicle. Audi's moving quickly towards a full EV future. The brand has already admitted that it's effectively stopped long-term development on petrol and diesel engines. But for the time being, their use continues in models like this one, albeit with the varying levels of electrification that we described in our driving experience section. If you viewed that part of this film, you'll know that both the conventional 2-litre diesel and petrol engines get the brand's 12-volt mild hybrid system. Plus, there's a 48-volt version of that setup for the V6 TDI unit that features in the SQ5 Sportback. And in addition, Ingolstadt offers 2 PHEV plug-in hybrid TFSIe powertrains. All this talk about electrification and hybrids might lead you to expect greater efficiency gains than are actually delivered. Let's give you a few WLTP stats for the Sportback body shape, which are in some cases fractionally behind those of the ordinary SUV Q5 model, because this coupe SUV variant weighs 15 to 20 kilos more. Right, let's get to it. With base sport trim, the 40 TDI diesel variant manages up to 44.8 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 165 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's almost identical to the figures you'd get from a rival Mercedes GLC Coupe 220D, and not much different to the stats of a comparable Range Rover Velar D200 MHEV. But the class leader remains BMW's X4 xDrive 20D, which thanks to a 35 kilogram lighter curb weight manages bests of 49.6 mpg and 153 grams per kilometre. It's worth noting, by the way, that with the larger 21-inch wheels of top Vorsprung trim, the figures of a Q5 Sportback 40 TDI fall to 41.5 mpg and 179 grams per kilometre. These diesel figures have been aided by the introduction of so-called twin-dosing catalytic converter technology for the current version of this model's 2-litre TDI power plant, which features dual AdBlue injection, significantly increasing emissions cleanliness. With twin dosing, AdBlue is injected upstream of two SCR catalytic converters arranged in series, with the result of cutting emissions of nitrogen by up to 80% compared with older versions of this 2-litre TDI unit. For the alternative mainstream derivative, the 45 TFSI petrol model, the figures with Sportback are 33.6 mpg and 192 grams per kilometre of CO2, or 31.4 mpg and 204 grams per kilometre with Vorsprung trim. Audi's claim for the difference its 12-volt MHEV or mild hybrid system makes with these 40 TDI and 45 TFSI Q5 models is actually quite modest, a saving of 0.3 litres of fuel every 100 kilometres or 62 miles. Worthwhile certainly, but you can keep the Prius comparisons on hold. Just in case you haven't seen our driving experience section, we'll brief you on what Audi's definition of mild hybrid tech actually means. A BAS belt alternator starter generator that with the 4-cylinder engines powers a 12-volt main electrical setup in which a compact lithium-ion battery in the boot stores energy harvested via a KERS or kinetic energy recovery system. During braking, the BAS package can recover up to 5 kilowatts of power and feed it back into the battery. If the driver takes their foot off the accelerator at speeds between 34 and 99 miles an hour, the mild hybrid system will recuperate energy while the car rolls in idle or coasts with its engine automatically switched off. The belt alternator starter generator restarts the engine the next time the accelerator is depressed and does so faster and more gently than a conventional starter. All of this you'll particularly notice at urban speeds, where the engine start-stop system is cutting in and out. The start-stop range begins at just under 14 miles an hour, so you'll often find the car coasting up to the end of a traffic queue, a traffic light, or a level crossing. All of this mild hybrid technology sounds good, but as we remarked earlier, and as Audi admits, it doesn't achieve a huge improvement in overall fuel and CO2 stats. If you want a Q5 variant that does, your Audi Centre will point you in the direction of the TFSI-E plug-in hybrid models we mentioned at the beginning. There are two, the 50 TFSI-E with 299 PS and the 55 TFSI-E with 367 PS. Both pair the 2-litre TFSI petrol engine of this conventional 45 TFSI variant with a 105 kilowatt electric motor powered by a 14.4 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. This can be charged in about 2 hours from a 7 kilowatt garage wall box or in about 6 hours from a conventional 3-pin domestic plug. With the battery of a Q5 TFSI E model fully replenished, up to 38 miles of all-electric driving range is supposed to be possible, though you'll only maximise this if you make proactive use of the various available drive modes. Hybrid is the default one, but you've also got EV for battery power only, and battery hold, which enables you to save battery power for later in your trip. With regard to fuel and CO2 emissions, the official figures we had at the time of this film in late 2021 were up to 188.3 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 36 grams per kilometre of CO2 for the 50 TFSI E model, and up to 166.2 mpg and 41 grams per kilometre for the 55 TFSI E competition variant. These are pie-in-the-sky figures, of course. You'd probably only get around 40 mpg from any sort of Q5 TFSI-E in real-world motoring. But the important thing is that the government believes them, hence the impressively low benefit-in-kind taxation figures for these TFSI-E plug-in hybrid models. You're talking 14% in year 1 of ownership, 15% in year 2, and 16% in year 3. To give you some perspective on that, the conventional 40 TDI and 45 TFSI Q5 derivatives are typically rated at 37%. Tax levels this low explain why the pence per mile figure for a Q5 TFSI-E, 9.8 pence per mile, looks so affordable. For completion in our perusal of Q5 Sportback fuel and CO2 readings, we'll also give you the efficiency stats for the sporting SQ5 TDI variant. This 6-cylinder diesel model gets the 48-volt version of the MHEV mild hybrid system, which has a more sophisticated belt alternator starter generator package that can recover up to 8 kilowatts of power and feed it back into the battery. As a result, an Q5 Sportback manages a WLTP rated combined cycle fuel return of 34.4 mpg and a CO2 reading of 214 grams per kilometre, which translates into a BIK tax rating of 37%. All of which is pretty impressive for a sports SUV capable of getting to 62 miles an hour in 5.1 seconds. Helping this Q5 stay competitive in efficiency terms are a whole series of careful design features. For example, a slippery CD factor of 0.30 makes this one of the more aerodynamic SUVs in this segment. This is something aided on the 40 TDI variant by a controllable cool air inlet, a frame installed behind the radiator grille housing 2 blinds that close at low speeds and open at higher ones to improve air resistance. With all 4-cylinder models, the auto gearbox includes a coasting function that cuts in to disengage the engine at cruising speeds of between 34 and 99 miles an hour, then re-engages it immediately and almost seamlessly when you either accelerate or brake. Whatever your Q5 Sportback variant of choice, magazine tests have pointed out that across the board, the efficiency figures we've quoted can be difficult to achieve in day-to-day motoring, but then that's not an issue exclusive to Audi. Much will depend on the driver, hence the Ingolstadt brand's efforts with this car to help the person at the wheel do more when it comes to frugality. An efficiency assist segment of the centre dash infotainment screen allows you to activate or deactivate some of the car's main frugality aids, things like the intelligent coasting feature we just mentioned. You can also activate general economy tips and what Audi calls predictive messaging. In addition, there's an energy consumers readout in the instrument cluster, showing you the effects that, say, the air conditioning is having on the car's energy usage. Beyond that, as usual with the company's models, there's an efficiency setting on the Drive Select driving mode system, which tweaks the air conditioning, gear shift timings and throttle response for maximum frugality. If you choose to use the individual Drive Select mode that allows you to tailor your preferred settings, you'll find that efficient is one of 3 options you can choose for setting the drive system. The MMI navigation setup on this car has been programmed around what Audi calls predictive and efficient driving, which means that it will adapt the drive demeanour of your Q5 Sportback based on things like speed limits and gradient changes. And if you stretch to a version of this car with Audi's Tour pack fitted, optional with S-Line trim and standard with Vorsprung spec, you'll find that it can be even more proactively efficient thanks to the Predictive Efficiency Assistant setup that comes as part of that pack's Adaptive Cruise Assist system. Predictive Efficiency Assistant really is very clever, constantly gathering navigation data, camera images and feedback from the built-in Car2X message system that receives car swarm feedback from other similarly equipped vehicles. Using all this, the software can then contribute to a more economical driving style. For example, instructing you when to release the accelerator before entering a curve or behind a slower vehicle, for instance. Get onto the highway, and with the adaptive cruise control system activated, Efficiency Assist will automatically make all the frugal driving adjustments for you. What else? Well, bear in mind that as with all modern diesel cars, the TDI versions of this one use an AdBlue fuel additive stored in a separate rear tank that'll need to be topped up as part of regular servicing. It's a 12-litre tank as standard, but you can pay a little more at point of purchase to get a 24-litre version of this tank that'll last you rather longer. This comes packaged with a slightly larger 70-litre fuel tank, 5 litres bigger than you get on a standard 40 TDI. As for maintenance, well, servicing your Q5 Sportback should be no more taxing than is the case with one of the company's smaller cars. As usual with Audi models, there's a choice of either a fixed or a flexible servicing regime. The choice between the two depending on the extent of your likely annual mileage. The fixed schedule is aimed at drivers covering fewer than 10,000 miles a year and includes an oil change service every 9,000 miles or every year, plus an inspection service every 19,000 miles or every 2 years. If you cover more than 10,000 miles a year, the flexible service schedule will be more appropriate. This regime including oil change and inspection services at variable intervals of up to every 19,000 miles or every 2 years. Whatever package you go for, you'll need to change the brake fluid after the first 3 years, then every 2 years thereafter. Overall maintenance costs can be kept down if you go for one of the prepaid servicing plans you'll be offered at initial purchase, which can cover you up to a maximum of 3 years and include an oil service and a major service. You may also be interested to know that this car can even book its own service appointments via an Audi Connect safety and service system app. As well as providing emergency calling and online roadside assistance, this feature can, at the appropriate time, send a service request direct to your local dealer. Alternatively, you can sign up for Audi Service Request, which uses the onboard Wi-Fi to enable your car to communicate with the dealer. As your Q5 Sportback nears the time when work will be needed, the diagnostics alert your nominated local Audi centre will then contact you to book in a convenient time. Another neat service your dealer can offer you is the so-called Audi Cam system. Here, technicians carrying out workshop inspections on your Q5 can focus a handheld Audi Cam camera on specific problems, accompanying the image with a verbal diagnosis to create footage that can be sent to your computer or smartphone. That way, you'll know precisely what work you're authorising on your car. On to residuals. The Q5 has always performed well in this regard and nothing's changed here. Independent experts CAP Monitor reckon that over the usual 3-year or 60,000 mile period, a 40 TDI diesel Q5 Sportback will cling on to around 50% of its original asking price. In comparison, comparable Mercedes GLC Coupe 220D manages just 46%. Go for the alternative 45 TFSI petrol model we're trying here, and you'll find that its 48% retained value figure is also class-leading, just shading that of a comparable Range Rover Velar P250. It's a similar story when it comes to pence per mile running costs. CAP reckons that over 3 years and 60,000 miles, a Q5 Sportback 40 TDI will cost 42.76 pence per mile to run, around 3 pence per mile less than a comparable Mercedes GLC Coupe 220D. Those kind of figures can really add up if you're covering higher mileages. The TFSI-E plug-in models hang on to their value well too, typically retaining 46 to 47% of their value over the 3-year, 60,000 mile period. In comparison, a rival Volvo XC60 Recharge plug-in model only manages 42%. We'll finish by covering the warranty. All cars in this class get 3 years of cover, but whereas BMW and Mercedes don't limit your mileage in this period, Audi rather meanly restricts you to 60,000 miles. Optional extra cost packages can extend the cover to either 4 or 5 years and 75 or 95,000 miles respectively. As for insurance groupings, well, for the 40 TDI Sportback variant, ratings start from Group 35E for Sport Trim, 37E for S-Line spec and 40E for the Vorsprung version. For this 45 TFSI petrol model, ratings start from Group 38E for Sport Trim, 40E for S-Line spec and 42E for the Vorsprung version. For the 2 TFSI-E plug-in models, insurance groupings range between 41 and 45E depending on variant. For the SQ5 Sportback, ratings are pitched at Group 45E for the standard version and Group 47E for the top Vorsprung model. It's surprising that Audi gave BMW and Mercedes the mid-size coupe SUV market to themselves for so long. But this Q5 Sportback corrects that oversight with characteristic Ingolstadt thoroughness. If the sales profile of the smaller Q3 Sportback is replicated, it'll likely be the preferred Q5 body shape in future for most customers. The reasons why are obvious. This coupe SUV variant makes a more expressive visual statement, yet the practicality downsides are minimal. Plus, there are all the attractions which have made the ordinary Q5 such a profitable model for Ingolstadt. Things like exemplary refinement and ride quality, both of which are difficult to better in this sector. Plus, there's cabin quality that continues to set the segment standard. Along with meticulous build quality and a very competitive showing when it comes to efficiency readings, residual values and safety technology. Rivals, of course, offer many of these things too, but nobody packages them up quite like Audi. This sportier looking Q5 isn't perfect, of course. It could certainly be more interesting to drive. Audi needs to borrow expertise used in this model's close cousin, the Porsche Macan, in this regard. But there's no shortage of showroom appeal here. No other brand does a better digital instrument screen, and though we're disappointed with some elements of the infotainment package, it certainly brings media connectivity within striking distance of the newer rival BMW and Mercedes systems, though without quite matching them. Plus, stiffening competition has forced Audi to up its game in terms of standard equipment lower down the range, which is welcome, though it's annoying that the brand doesn't include the near essential sliding rear bench without extra cost. Overall, it's ultimately hard to escape the conclusion that this more appealing looking Q5 simply does a better job of the whole business of ticking every really important need you want to meet when buying a premium upper mid-sized SUV with a real dose of segment style. There's a want one factor here, which should stand this car in very good stead.